on, you guys can do better than that. How are we doing today? That's much more like it. Welcome to the International Space Station, or ISS for short. We've actually been expecting all of you. The ring of that bell means that we have new crew members aboard, which are all of you. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Hayden, and I am your mission briefing officer today. And it is my goal to give you the most realistic experience aboard the ISS, without any training, or an expensive trip aboard the SpaceX Dragon, or without the discomforts of microgravity. But remember, we're in an orbiting laboratory in the sky, and as we travel about 240 miles above the Earth's surface, we're conducting experiments that can only be done in reduced gravity. And many different astronauts from around the world have made this international project totally real, and not just some space station in a galaxy far, far away. But just before your arrival, I was in our medical lab working on some cellular experimentation. You see, growing some cells outside of the human body back on Earth can be difficult because these cells will grow extremely slowly. And because of gravity, eventually they are crushed by their own weight. But in microgravity, it's a little bit different because those exact same cells are going to grow faster. They're going to start to grow in 3 dimensions, and they're going to live significantly longer lifespans. And because they're living longer, we have more time to study them. And that has helped us make major medical breakthroughs in things like diseases, DNA, and we've even improved organ transplantation. But that is not all that we're doing up here. We're conducting many different experiments every single day. Like just early this morning, I was working with alloys, or mixed metals. You see, mixing an industrial amount of lead and tin back on Earth is virtually impossible. Because the lead is so much heavier and denser than the tin, it's going to sink to the bottom, while that tin floats on top, kind of like oil and water. But in microgravity, these two metals blend together quite easily, making the alloy we know as solder, which is used in many of your cell phones and computers. So, we are doing things up here that impact everybody back down on Earth. Not just us, and not just spaceflight. But now it is time for the most important mission of my day. The most important mission of any astronaut's day. And that's my lunch break. And I'm so glad you guys could be here to join me, because I honestly hate to eat alone. But before we see what I'm having, what do you guys like to eat for lunch? Do you guys like tacos?
Yeah.
What about pasta?
Yeah.
Or burgers?
Yeah.
Do you guys like candy?
Yeah.
Or cake? Well, if you like any of those things, you're going to have a pretty good time aboard the ISS, because most of those are menu items. We have an extensive menu of around 200 different items to choose from, many of which are made in Houston, Texas at Johnson Space Center in the Food Lab. But let's see what I'm having today. Today I'll have cream of mushroom soup. Looks good, right? Yeah, I know. It looks a little bit weird, but that's because this soup, along with all of our other food, has been dehydrated, which means all of the water has been taken out of it. So we can store it without refrigeration, and so it'll have a much longer shelf life. To prepare this, I would have to bring it back here to my food rehydration unit. I would throw it in there, add cold or hot water, depending on the label, and then mix it up. And whenever it's ready, we'll just cut this pouch open and eat it from here. But you might be thinking, Hayden, you have a perfectly good table right there. Why wouldn't you cut it open, put it on a plate, and eat it at the table like we do back on Earth? And that's because my table's missing a couple things. Up here, we really don't have any plates, or cups, or most utensils. Does anybody know what would happen to them if I set them on my table?
Float.
It would float, right? If I set my food there, I would have no idea idea where it would end up. So, to avoid losing our lunches, we have added Velcro to all of our food pouches. So, if I do want to eat this at the table, I just have to Velcro it to the table. Or, if I want to take this to go, I don't need a box because I can just Velcro it to my uniform. Or, I can even go back here and put my food on the wall, so I always know where I left it. And if you guys want to try some dehydrated foods for yourselves, once you get back down to earth, that is, I've heard Space Traders has a couple options to choose from. And I know, it is not like the food back on your home planet, but I promise, it's not that bad. Thanks for joining me for lunch. You all have been fantastic company. But just like back on Earth, we typically have to use the restroom after every meal. So, just give me a couple seconds. You, the waste hygiene compartment. Yay! Or as you guys know it back down on Earth, the restroom. But up here, it's a little bit different because we are lacking two key luxuries you all enjoy back on Earth: water and gravity. Instead, we have suction, like a vacuum cleaner. And this seat right here is where you're gonna sit to do your solid waste. And yes, that is a very small seat with a very small hole. So many of you need to develop very good aim. But once you actually hit the target, your waste is going to be sucked away to a storage unit, where once it fills with other waste and trash, I know, it's going to be sent out into space to break apart into the Earth's atmosphere. For everyone down there to see. So the next time you see a shooting star, that probably wasn't a shooting star. Liquid waste, though, is a different story, because liquid waste is going to go into this tube right here. Now, the thing about liquid waste is we don't get rid of it. Because drinking water is so scarce, we have to purify, reuse, and recycle any and all water already aboard the station. So, that cup of coffee you had this morning is the exact same cup of coffee you had 2 weeks ago. It's all the same water. And as gross as that may sound, this technology is actually being used back on Earth to bring safe, clean drinking water to polluted or dry regions. So, this water actually saves lives. And it doesn't taste so bad. You can just think of it as your space Capri Sun. The water is also going to behave a little differently in microgravity. Because if I were to spill this back down on Earth, it would fall into a puddle. But up here, well, let me just show you. Because again, we're in microgravity, the highest force now acting upon water is actually surface tension. So it's going to form these bubbles that fly around, and whenever they make contact with each other, they will just make larger bubbles until they can find something that has absorbency, like that towel. Then upon contact, wicking action activates, and all that water gets sucked up like a sponge. Pretty neat, right? But building on that, the human body is made up of around 60% water. So we too get to see and feel the effects of microgravity on our own bodies. Here's a good example. This is your body. And whenever you enter microgravity in that first 48 hours, the liquid is going to pool from your limbs up towards your head, making it look puffy, making it feel like you have a really bad cold. But that also means these limbs are going to be losing that liquid, making them up here skinnier, making them up here shorter. Up here, we call that chicken legs. Your spine is also going to elongate upwards of 2 inches, making you taller, which I like. But your heart is going to shrink from lack of use. So not all good things. You're also going to lose bone density and muscle mass. But don't worry, all of these things are reversible, and they're going to go back to normal slowly but surely once you return back to Earth. But that is why it is so important that astronauts are in good physical shape, both before and during their stay on the ISS. So, who is ready to start exercising 2 hours a day? Every single day. Even weekends and holidays? Man, I don't think I could do that. You guys are braver than me. But that's how much we have to exercise to maintain our muscles. So to stay fit, we use something like this, the dual cycle ergometer. And it's just a fancy space bike. And yes, it looks like your exercise bike at home or your exercise bike at the gym. And it is essentially the exact same thing, with one key difference. And usually I would hop up there and show you guys, but I'm a little sore today. So does anybody want to use the dual cycle? You do? Come on over. Hello there, what's your name? Welcome, Luke, to the ISS. Can we give him one big round of applause? Alrighty, Luke, you can head over there. Oh, and look at you, you're already a pro. And I can just pedal kind of like a bike back home. You're so good you can do it backwards. There you go. Now, I mentioned that the dual cycle is a little bit different aboard the ISS, and that's because there isn't going to be anything to keep you in that seat anymore. So now, instead of just pedaling back on Earth, you have to hold yourself in the seat and pedal at the same time. That sounds a little bit more difficult, huh? Yeah, and it is. It becomes a full body intensity workout. But don't worry, you don't have to use the dual cycle for the full 2 hours, because we also have a treadmill, which you can see down here. But in order to use it, you have to be strapped down to it, and then additional weight is added to simulate running, just like back down on Earth. What do you think about that one? You don't know? Me neither. I don't like running, so I'll stay on the dual cycle. We also have the ARAD, the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device, which helps us lift weights in space. Now, look, I won't make you lift any weights today, but what about tomorrow? Alrighty, you ready to head back down to Earth? Perfect. Can we give him one more big round of applause? For the ISS. Whether it is maintaining our bodies or conducting experiments or eating a lot of good food, there's a lot to do up here. So much to do. In fact, we've had to add 3 new permanent residences just to keep up with it all. And that's right, I said permanent. Their names are Honey, Bumble, and Queen. And if their names sound kind of odd, it's because they aren't human. They're the Astropy robots. And you know what? Let's meet one. Come out here, Bumble. This is my friend Bumble. Everybody say hi, Bumble. Now he's your friend too. But again, Bumble is one of our Astropy robots, and these guys were implemented back in 2018. And our goal for them is that they're going to be able to take on small routine tasks in order to free up the astronauts' time so they can do things only humans can do, like experimentation and research. They navigate the ISS using 6 fans all around their bodies, so they just propel themselves wherever they'd like to go. Now, also in the future, Bumble and his friends will be getting their own AI, so they can perform all these tasks by themselves. But right now, they're still being controlled by humans, either on the ISS or back home in Mission Control. But of course, Bumble is one very busy bee, so we had to get going. But luckily for all of you, it's the end of a long day aboard the ISS. And we have all been scheduled for 8.5 hours of sleep, from around 9:30 p.m. to 6 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And you're going to need all of it, because working up here gets extremely exhausting, extremely fast. But getting adequate sleep aboard the ISS is easier said than done, because we are moving. We are moving fast and constantly at 17,000 1,500 miles per hour, which is 5 miles per second, which is almost as fast as the drivers in Texas. And because we're going that fast, we go completely around the Earth once every hour and a half, every 90 minutes, which also means we are seeing up to 16 sunrises and sunsets a day, which is a lot of light, which makes it kind of difficult to sleep. So we've added measures to block out that light. But where do astronauts sleep? If we slept just anywhere aboard the ISS, we would float around, and we could risk bumping into our crewmates or bumping into vital technology that is keeping us all alive. And we really don't want to do that, right? So we introduced the Sleep Restraint Unit, or SRU, and it's kind of like a straitjacket and a sleeping bag all in one. And to use it, you would hop in, you would then zip yourself up, you would then strap yourself down, and then you can either keep your arms inside or put them out these holes here. The little warning, if you do that, you might scare yourself awake in the middle of the night when your hands float in front of your face. But then whenever you're ready to go to sleep, you're going to just have to attach your head to its pillow. Looks really comfortable, right? And I often get asked, Hayden, where can I get those for my kids? And I can't legally tell you anymore. But I also got asked, how is it fair that somebody has to sleep standing up on the wall and someone has to sleep upside down on the ceiling? Wouldn't it be uncomfortable and extremely physically damaging to be sleeping upside down for such an extended period of time? And while it's a great question, the answer might not be what you're expecting. There's no such thing as upside down. There's no true up or down. There isn't enough gravity to dictate what is up and what is down. So now it all depends on your orientation and perspective within the space station itself to determine what you think is up and what you think is down. So essentially, sleeping on the ceiling and sleeping on the wall feel the exact same. These brave astronauts have been living and working in space over several missions for over 25 years. And it is because of their hard work and dedication that we're preparing to take the next great leap into space travel and exploration. Because of the research conducted aboard the ISS, we are taking humans back to the moon as early as 2026. These missions are called Artemis. And on Artemis, women and people of color will be finally taking their very first steps on the lunar surface. And following those missions, the very first humans will be going to Mars as early as the 2030s. And all of these future missions have been made possible by your support, the worldwide space agencies, and the International Space Station. Unfortunately, astronauts, we are nearing the end of your New Perspectives journey. But remember, we've been moving this whole time. Since our journey began, the actual International Space Station has traveled around 5,700 miles. That's like starting and hovering over Houston, Texas, and flying all the way to Barcelona, Spain. If you have any further questions, feel free to meet me at the bottom of those stairs, and have an out of this world day at Space Center Houston.